What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the You Know Ball podcast. I am your host, Tro Bro Dude, and Sam, I know you wanted to say something really important up top, so I'll give you the floor.
So a lot of you guys, it's a pretty big city, but we probably have a lot of people who have friends and family in, San Francisco, Oakland, the Bay Area in general. We saw just the absurd lengths what the NBA will go to try to keep them from succeeding at basketball. And another devastating blow for Warriors fans today. With De'Aaron Fox's injury, this has, kind of robbed them of, being able to warm up adequately for, other series they might have down the line.
Sure. Other star guards.
They're basically getting one hand tied behind their back.
Yeah.
And I feel so bad for how much bad luck can one team have? And I just, it sucks for the Kings, but at the same time, you guys
are the real victims here, right?
Well, just the Kings, they were the third seed.
Sure.
They've had success more recently than Warriors fans have. So I can't find myself crying too much for these hoity-toity fat cat Kings fans who have enjoyed upwards of 2 playoff wins. So, they had their chance, let the Warriors fans get a little bit of a chance to have something good happen to them.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you just, you have so much bad luck over the last decade as, fans of a franchise like the Warriors have had.
Well, it's because they haven't had the spending of Warriors fans. Warriors fans, if Kings fans had, done more STEM in school, if they had learned to code, maybe they could afford to have a giant payroll. This is all the direct morals of San Francisco. It's their hard work ethic, and just kind of the can-do attitude. I mean, it's the cradle of innovation.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what we're always saying here about Silicon Valley.
Yeah. What has Sacramento innovated? Cowbells. I mean, maybe if they,
the band Cake.
Yeah. Have you ever seen them invent something as good as Google Glass, the Theranos blood tester, SVB, FTX,
SpaceX,
SpaceX, Tesla, a famously good car that has no problems with it. Sorry, Sacramento, you're not on the same level as the geniuses of San Francisco and all they've given us.
In all seriousness, this started because
in all seriousness. Let's be dead serious.
This psychosis started because a Warriors fan friend of ours said that the Warriors have had multiple titles taken away from them because of injury and suspension and things of those nature. So they've actually been on the bad side of things. Certainly no historical luck or outlier shit that has happened at all.
I literally laughed out loud because that's the exact logic Patriots fans have use.
Always.
18-1 is actually a way worse thing to happen to you than just having 20 years where you don't make the playoffs or whatever happens. Yeah.
Or the Lions or the Browns or
the Vikings. Any of these teams, Patriots fans are actually it's way worse to have 18-1 happen to you and then get 6 titles, in 20 years. It's because you lost 3 of them. That's very sad.
True.
You lose to these NFC East teams. It's the worst thing that because Eagles fans post at you about
Nick Foles.
Big Dick Nick catching the ball. This is automatically the worst thing that's happening.
It's worse than violence if you think about it.
Yeah. I mean, I know I'm one to talk as a Celtics fan who I'm talking about Gordon Hayward's injury and stuff like that. But the difference is when Celtics fans do it everywhere, even when the media sometimes gets in on a little bit of Boston media mafia, it's understood they're being diaper babies, and I cannot believe the amount of pandering there is to Warriors fans and like a franchise that, by the way, like every other franchise that puts it together, at the end of the day, just had a really good draft luck. Like it's like every dynasty has that in common.
Well, we talked about this. We actually talked about this with because we were talking about like teams being able to get away with it, and how the Warriors and Heat over the last few years have been the perfect examples of team that's just they keep getting away with it no matter what. And Bill talked about like the zombie Heat thing, and like I was saying that was actually the case for the Warriors. I know we made fun of him. He was like 100% accurate and right on that. But the reason I bring this up is because not only did they have the draft luck, which we've talked about ad nauseum, we talked about it so fucking much.
Yeah.
But we never talked about really the 16 cap spike, and we've never really talked about the Steph becoming a basketball god on his second contract after signing a 4-year, $44 million contract.
Yeah, it's like $11 million. Yeah.
Like there was a lot of luck and just amazing things that have happened to that franchise. And the fact that they're, still around and still fighting, I think the Kings had their opportunity yesterday, and unfortunately they weren't able to pull through with that last shot from Harrison Barnes. But like, it's just really frustrating because I wanted to see a new team do it. You know what I mean? Like, I just wanted to see some fresh blood. The Warriors have had their day in the sun. Like they're always fun to watch. This has been one of the best playoff series so far, but I just wanted to see something a little bit fresh, a little bit new. And because the Kings fans genuinely have suffered for so long, it would have been awesome. And I know I'm talking about this in past tense. It's not over, but like the Fox injury, he's so important to that team right now.
That just kind of
sucks.
Kind of really sucks and kind of puts a stake through the heart of any hope I had of this series. Maybe it still goes. I can't see the war. I can't see injured De'Aaron. It would take like a Herculean effort. And
Malik Monk, new Nick Foles.
I was gonna say. Well, I think Fox might try to play through it, and it's not like he's like entirely a shooter. Like he does do a lot of like shooting around the rim. There's not like a ton of. It's just brutal. I think what's so frustrating about this is we've been talking. I said the last podcast, I think pretty much whoever wins this series, whoever comes out of Lakers Grizzlies is pretty much drawing dead. I think these two teams are by far the better teams on this side of the bracket. I think these two teams are the two best teams in the West. I said outside of the Suns and Nuggets, and now I'm not really sure about that Suns thing I was saying. They really might. I think what's so frustrating about this is that the Warriors, through their bad season, there was a little bit of a hubristically being like, oh well, like they like fucked up the evaluation in that the Kings were probably the worst possible first round matchup for them. Like I'm not ready to say that like the Suns are an easier matchup for them than the things, but it's probably going to work out for them anyway. Like in this case, I mean, I don't know. I feel like my analysis was pretty accurate before. I've been saying like, look, I think the Kings are like one of the best teams in the West. I still feel that way. It's shaken out like a really tough way. I've always said that I never thought the Warriors were like bad. We've been saying all year that like, once they got all 5 of their guys back, like they'll be in the mix. I think the wounded Grizzlies and the Lakers are just drawing completely dead against one of these teams. And that means if the Warriors win this, I think they're pretty much going to the Western Conference Finals
again. Like it's just like crazy how inevitable they seem to be. Mm-hmm. But I went on Chuck's podcast, Chucking Darts. If you haven't listened to that, go check that out. Chuck does great stuff on the NBA and the draft and all that. On the podcast, he was talking about this because Bill and we did a little bit on it and Bill did a little bit on it of the teams that are kind of at the end of their road after a dynasty, essentially, or after like winning multiple titles, like the Lakers three-peat team, the Celtics, the Bulls, the Heat, all those teams. And what Chuck's point was that was interesting was he basically said, a lot of these teams that take down the Goliaths are usually two-way forces. the Kings are kind of an outlier in that they've actually leaned in so far on the one side of the court that it's actually optimized the offense so much. And I talked about it a little bit. I think one of the reasons why they don't really look scared in this series against the Warriors is because they play at such a frantic pace that, like, in the past, when teams go up against the Warriors and you have these moments where Steph hits a huge three or Clay hits a huge three, or there's just like the Warriors are locking you up on defense, you can't do anything down the stretch of a game. A lot of these teams are, generally speaking, not playing at the same pace as the Warriors. And the Kings are probably the only team in the NBA that plays at a pace just as fast, if not faster, than the Warriors, as they have in this series. And it doesn't really give you time to kind of sit around and think. Like, I think that there actually is a benefit to, like, fuck it, let's move on to the next possession in a way that I've never really seen from a young team against like a former dynasty or a current technical dynasty like the Warriors.
Well, this is kind of why I was so high on the Kings coming into this series, and I was kind of blown away at how much everyone was writing off the Kings, because I this is like what I kept trying to say about like the defense not really mattering in this series, is because when you lean into that aspect of it, because I know what it's like to like watch your team play the Warriors in high leverage games, and it's just like the sliding away. Like, you make mistakes, you turn the ball over, and you know, it kind of tugs the rope onto the Warriors side of the court. You know, it's getting faster, it's getting out of hand, it's getting more frantic. The points are coming down. When you can go blow for blow with the Warriors and play at this frantic pace, and you're younger and deeper, that is a huge benefit. And the Warriors have no psychological advantage there. It's a damn shame that the one person who seems to be affected by this is Domantas Sabonis, who is just like
being Ben Simmons.
He is like my guy froze, hasn't moved in 5 minutes.
Sure.
So, like, because I that's like the one thing I was totally wrong on this. I thought this series was going to be like a guaranteed Sabonis monster, like 2015 every game, and then you're trying to cobble it together from the perimeter, and he has been awful, like genuinely awful. And you expect it on defense, but I'm kind of shocked by how ineffective he's been on defense.
On offense.
On offense. And it's, all credit to, I know Draymond Green's an elite defender, but like Draymond Green's an elite defender because he survives and does pretty well against bigs, and then is a crazy switch cover up defender at the back line. Domantas Sabonis is like a custom-made big to challenge Draymond Green as much as he can be challenged on the defensive end. And it's just psychologically, Draymond's won like there. I don't know what happened.
Draymond historically has kind of always owned Sabonis, which was one factor coming into this series that, like, I think the fact that he's strong, he can kind of get into Sabonis' head a little bit. They're willing to, kind of leave Sabonis by himself. He's going to have to generate his own offense. He's going to have to fight for rebounds and, get putbacks and things like that. Things that he's not really comfortable with. They're not really threatened by the dribble handoff actions as much because they feel like they can chase their guys around screens. And they feel like, they're going to sacrifice whatever they have to with the mid-range jumper diet from a guy like Sabonis to kind of just keep the Kings guards as much at bay as they can. Like they have, once again, you said, like, their point of attack defense is really where they've struggled all season. It's really where they've struggled in this series, especially with a guy like De'Aaron Fox, who, like, until that adjustment yesterday when they actually moved Draymond onto him at one point, which was kind of a brilliant adjustment, that Draymond, by this point in the series, is such a smart defender that he knows exactly what the other team wants to do by game 4. And, like, you saw it. That's why they were able to lock them up yesterday. If you go back and you rewatch that fourth quarter, a lot of plays were getting blown up by Draymond, specifically the last play of the game. Draymond and Steph were basically both on Fox, which led to Barnes being wide open, but they were willing to live with that as opposed to giving up that little elbow jumper that Draymond noticed that Fox always goes to in clutch situations.
Late breaking news. Murray has been suspended for Game 5.
I mean, yeah, that's he bumped
as
into an
expected.
official. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think everyone who bumps into an official in that Games 4 Hawks Celtics game should probably be suspended.
Yeah, I agree.
Hold on. I'm hearing.
I mean, it looked like it was
the
in
Boston
a way
media mafia strikes again.
Well, look. To be fair, I think we should call a flagrant foul on that ref for being in Tatum's landing space when he was walking up to the free throw line.
Yes, I agree.
But
I do, unironically, I do think those are totally different circumstances.
And, yeah, I do too. I mean, look, I wouldn't be shocked if Tatum got a technical foul or a fine for something like that.
Yeah,
but to be suspended for just walking into a ref in the middle of a game versus like clearly trying to intimidate a ref after the game,
seeking out a ref after the game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, certainly not. All right, before we get into anything else, let's talk about our sponsors from Underdog Fantasy, the newest and best place to play fantasy sports and fade all of our picks. Yeah. Use the promo code SLOP, that's SLOP, to get a $100 deposit match today.
Do we know if Giannis is out?
Giannis is in. He's back tonight, Game 4. These are the picks that if you do hear this before, you can fade these picks. You know us. This episode will be out to the general public later. For our Patreon people, to fade our picks at this point. Yeah. I'm going to make the picks tonight, Sam, because you've tried twice in a row and you've continued my streak. Will's the only one who's gotten a pick recently. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go against my my intuition here, because my intuition tells me this could be a game where the Heat load up on Giannis and make other guys kind of beat them in a way that I think that because the Bucks kind of struggled to shoot without Giannis, they're going to kind of focus and hone in on that. So having said that, I'm going to go with the exact opposite of my instincts here. And I'm going that Giannis is going to have a crazy game. So I'm going to, in his first game back, I'm going to go higher on his points.
This is so funny because my first pick was go lower on Giannis's points when I thought I was picking. That was like the first thing I said. I was like, he's gonna be hurt. Like.
So we're going exact opposite instinct here.
Yeah, exactly the same.
27.5. We're going higher on Giannis, and then for Middleton, 19.5. He's been actually playing really well as the number one option. Well, playing as well as he can from a guy who's a number 2 against a good defense in the playoffs. Like, he's actually been pretty efficient scoring wise for fantasy stuff, at least. So I'm going to go with I always forget I can't do both without having a third pick. All right. So then do we think that we should go lower on Jimmy then?
This is an all-time. If you can, this is an all-time pick you should fade. I
going lower on Jimmy in the playoffs?
Yeah, I don't like that idea at all.
So then we're going to go against our instincts. We're going to remove Middleton from here. Hold on one second. We're going to remove Middleton. We're going to go higher on Jimmy, and we're going to go higher on, I'm just going exact opposite of my instincts here.
Yeah, okay.
Jimmy Butler higher than 28.5 points.
Yeah.
Giannis higher than 27.5 points. If you put $10 on that, you can get 30. And I just feel like from now on, I'm going to fade the instincts and see if we can get a pick right based on that. So big nights from Jimmy and Giannis tonight. Expect that, because I felt like the complete opposite. So, $100 deposit match, promo code SLOP, SLOP. If you have not already, please sign up for the playoffs. You can do drafts. You can do all that fun stuff. They always have good stuff going on over at Underdog. So please support them if you are able to. It supports the program. So back on to this topic. The Warriors-Kings has been by far the best playoff series so far.
Not close, yeah. And not close at all.
Not even, I mean, outside of game 3, every single game has been competitive. Yeah. Every single game has been electrifying offensively. And then until now, injuries were ruining a lot of other series. I don't want to say ruining, but like taking it down a notch. The Clippers and Suns has been competitive, but you just know the Clippers don't really have the horses right now
Yeah.
The Sixers losing Embiid, they won without him, but it still feels like there's not as much there.
Yeah, no Giannis in the Bucks game, or the Bucks series. All the injuries to like McDaniels and their guys for just
The Wolves.
really Wolves gives them like no real hope. And then Donovan Mitchell breaking the dog he has in him. Also, I've never seen a dog got the dog in him fracture.
It's
ever
unfortunate.
happened in game.
Yeah, exactly.
By the way, I feel like I owe a mea culpa. It's very funny that I'm still on pace to be mostly right with all of my picks except for
Cavs Knicks.
Cavs
in 5. We were shocked by that. We were like, I mean, I can't say anything. I picked the Cavs in 7, and they're very clearly going to lose this series.
I'm just so shocked at how
Udoka to the Rockets.
Is it for real?
Daniel just commented.
Yep. Wow. This is allow me to retweet. I'm gonna retweet Trey Adele's tweet of the
Kevin Porter Jr.
The Kevin Porter Jr. and Ime Udoka.
Wow. I thought it was going to be Nick Nurse.
Yeah. Oh boy, yeah. That is. Yeah. I do not speak or I get in trouble, so I'm just gonna keep it moving.
Harden back channels right now. I guarantee you he signed off on this.
Yeah, I mean, like, look,
coached him in Brooklyn.
Ime still has like 100% approval rating with the Celtics locker room. Those guys, I know, like I've heard it on like pretty good authority. Those guys like still don't really understand what happened and why he's not their coach. So really good coach at getting buy-in from players, which is the thing that the Rockets need the absolute most.
On the defensive end, especially.
Yeah. Just Brian, by the way, I heard that that's kind of not true. the Jalen, I know I've heard that too, but I've heard that Jalen actually does like Ime. So I've heard conflicting things about that. But anyway, I think from a purely basketball perspective, this is probably a pretty good hire for the Rockets. The problem with hiring Ime Udoka is there's not just a basketball perspective.
Well, that's the thing is like, yeah. I'm sorry. This is going to be touted as a culture hire, which is just insane if you consider what happened in Boston. Even if we don't know all the details, it's just, but on the basketball court, sure, whatever. We still don't know everything that happened, so I can't really comment on that. But I can say that I don't know. All I'm going to say is maybe if you need like the quote unquote accountability coach, that Udoka might end up being positive for the Rockets. I also think this hire has massive downside potential, only because the fact that I don't know how those players on that team will respond to a coach like him. He's very obviously different than Steven Silas, the last coach they had.
Yes.
Everything that John Wall says is that, like, if we are to believe what John Wall said, this is going to be the real first test if they have Kevin Porter Jr. and Jalen Green next year, when they have a coach that's basically like, fucking, like you said, calling them bitch-made baby food.
Yeah, calling them bitch-made baby food in the first press conference after they lose the thing. Yeah, I mean, not all guys like to be coached by that. I think one of the huge reasons the Celtics got huge buy-in is because they picked him. Yes. That was essentially a Celtics player's hire. And that's what they wanted, was accountability. Do the Rockets players want that accountability? I don't know. I genuinely don't. I'm not trying to be like facetious. I have no idea what they.
I also just don't really know what kind of coach Udoka really is as like a tactician. Like, because Missoula, like, it kind of seems like the team had, and look, the talent's a little bit better this year. Derek White's played better. We've talked about this all season. Brogdon's a better, guy to have off the bench as a secondary ball handler, all that shit.
Yeah.
This team is better than last year's team from depth-wise. Yeah. But at the same time, like, Missoula, they haven't really missed a beat. And Hardy did really well with the Jazz. So like,
yeah,
do we know what strings Udoka was really pulling? Was it Missoula and Hardy that were kind of doing a lot of the legwork?
Yeah. Well, I will say this. I mean, it was still, the staff that Ime kind of hired, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So like maybe,
he
maybe
gets good assistance again.
Yeah, so maybe he gets good assistance again, I've always said that's kind of the problem with Joe Mazzulla is I want to see next year what happens once he gets a chance, because our assistant coach depth is fucked, man. Like we are the hospital Celtics, but for assistant coach depth,
but this is what always happens.
Yeah.
Well, there's two reasons for this.
Mm-hmm.
One, you hired Missoula on the fly. You didn't really prepare for that. Yeah. And then two, if your team's really good, your assistants get stolen. That's what happens in the NFL. That's what happens in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, Damon Stoudemire being hired away was inevitable.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to talk about the Udoka thing because we still don't have all the details, which sounds like something, people say like when they're trying to like be, apologists for something awful that happened, but like we really don't know. Like sure. I really have no idea like what begins at. It was something bad enough for a championship caliber team to fire their head coach,
exactly,
suspend him without pay, essentially, and then later fire him. Like, so it had to have been something weird, but yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out with Houston.
Also, last thing on Udoka, it doesn't matter who the coach is if you don't get the right talent. Like, it just doesn't. Like, we talked about this. Yes, coaches can lift up talent that like might be inferior and get you to a certain baseline, but the Rockets need a massive roster makeover, whether they get Harden or they don't get Harden this offseason. That will matter way more than whoever the coach is. So that's my last thing on that.
Jaylen Brown, you are a Houston Rocket.
Yes. Finally, well, Bill said on his podcast immediately, Houston, right when Windy said that there might be a perfect team and a perfect city with the perfect role and da-da-da-da-da. But
that would be so fucking, I mean, like, I'd feel bad for my team, but this would be tremendous content.
Well, we laugh. Yeah. I was going to say we laugh at Harden but at least he has the connection to Houston. Like Jaylen going there, I guess you could argue he wants to be the number one option and he never will be with Tatum in Boston. But going from the potential, at least favorites for the NBA title right now, to the Houston Rockets would be an even bigger drop off than what Harden would be leaving, which was, the third or fourth team for the title.
By the way, he pretty much is the number one option because Jason Tatum is having, it just has a Jason Tatum game every game where he looks terrible, shoots terrible, defends well, but then ends the game with like 31 and 7 and 8 or 5 or whatever. Like, I don't know. Jaylen Brown, did you watch the Hawks Celtics yesterday? Like,
I watched it, yes. And I felt the same exact way having watched that game. I was like, wow, Tatum cannot hit a shot right now. And then I looked down and I was like, he has 27 points. Like, where?
I can't like everyone like makes fun of me for like my I don't know, my obsession with Jason Tatum, but he could be so much better, but he just always looks bad and yet is good. Like, it's like one of the most baffling things in the NBA. Like, I genuinely don't think he should be like, I'm shocked he's like finished fourth in MVP voting or is going to. Like, he did not look good all year, and he's. I look at the stats,
even better than he's ever been. Like, it's like
fuck.
I think free throws have a lot to do with that. Sometimes, Joel does that too, where I'm like, man, really tough Joel game. He's got 25 points on 10 shots because he just gets to the line so often now. And Tatum is such an improved driver and foul drawer that it's really built into the foul merchant experience. Like,
I guess maybe that's what it is.
There's no one that can quite do it like Jimmy Butler, where like Jimmy will have 6 shots and 30 points at the end of a game. But Tatum and Embiid are certainly. I think Embiid actually draws more fouls, but he takes way more shots and has more of an offensive load than Jimmy. But speaking of, Joel Embiid injured, we finally got confirmation from Ramona Shelburne of what the injury actually is today. It's a sprained LCL, which if you Google it, which I did immediately, of course, there are obviously multiple grades of sprains. There's different sprains that can keep you out for, 8 to 12 weeks. There's sprains that can keep you out 4 to 6 weeks. And it sounds like the one that Joel has is a few days to a week and a half. So I would imagine that they wouldn't put him back out there if it were one of the ones where it's 4 to 6 weeks, even if it is the playoffs. For his long-term health, I don't think they're going to push him through anything that could really damage him in the coming years. It's unfortunate timing, obviously. Joel, I kind of had a feeling that he was hurt after game 3, because in game 3, he was just not himself. He wasn't moving the same way. He was wincing in pain. So he's playing through that for the majority of game 3 in a game that he really struggled in. And, obviously the Sixers go on. They sweep for the first time since 1991. They had their first sweep in the playoffs. That was a 5-game series, though. That was back when they used to do 5-game series in 1991. You had to go back to 1985, which was Charles Barkley's rookie year, in order to find the last time that they actually swept a team in 4 games in the playoffs. So overall, I was very excited about that news, about the fact that they were able to beat the Nets, who, all things considered, are we actually had a thought experiment on this, Sam, and we were like, I'm not trying to downplay the Sixers' accomplishment here. Sweeping a team, regardless of who it is, beating them 4 straight is not an easy feat.
Yeah, nobody could have predicted this before the series.
Not Sam and Will.
Yeah. Oh, did Will also pick it?
Yeah, you guys both picked the sweep. I picked 5. I picked 5, and to be fair, 1 or 2 shots goes in for the Nets. They probably win game 3, and today that we're looking at game 5 being played tonight. But reality was they're not a playoff team. If they had played the entire season, they would be lucky to be in the play-in.
That was the main reason I picked the sweep. You've got one of the 3 best teams in the NBA and a team that literally should not be in the playoffs. So
yeah, and even then they figured out a strategy that they stuck to when Embiid played. And look, the Sixers still had a 122 offensive rating when Joel was on the court. Mostly due to the first game when they shot the shit out of the ball, and they kind of wore him down over the next 2 games. But the Nets really didn't have much of a chance in this series. Yeah. But we did a thought experiment. Without
Simmons.
Did you see the tweet that was from that person? That was it was, so someone tweeted, Ben Simmons tweeted after we got swept by you guys in the bubble in 1920.
Yeah.
The year 1920, before the Great Depression.
Everything was after the Great War. Exactly. Things were looking up.
I always called the bubble season 1920, and people are like, "Why do you refer to it as that?" My grandfather was just born.
The Lusitania was setting out. People love that boat.
So in that series, after that series, Ben obviously didn't play in that series. He had to leave the bubble due to an injury. And he tweeted, "I hate seeing my team get swept. Never want to have this feeling again."
Oh, no.
And then someone tweeted the picture of him on the bench last year when you guys swept them, and then him on the bench this year when we swept them. And a Nets fan tweeted at Ben in 2020 after that sweep and said, "Come to Brooklyn. This won't ever happen again."
Oh, no. Oh, no.
I was like, this is the most cursed tweet in the history of Twitter, dude.
Oh, my God. That is real, monkey's paw finger curling.
Yes.
Oh, God. That sucks.
So fucking funny. But yeah, I just had to bring that up. But so the Sixers sweep, our thought experiment was, I think other than them, the team that is probably the worst in the playoffs, I would say the Timberwolves are better than the Heat, but on the whole, the Timberwolves are so injured right now that this iteration of the Timberwolves, no McDaniels, no Reed, Cat fouling every 5 seconds in the playoffs. Ant's been incredible, and we'll talk about him a little bit later. But Kyle Anderson goes down last night. Like, if the Nets and the Timberwolves played in a series, I think the Timberwolves would still win in 5. Like, that is how bad this Nets team is. They just have no offense, no ability to create offense. But at the same time, you got to beat who's in front of you. The Sixers beat them. Tobias and Maxey looked absolutely fantastic, especially in that closing game. Tobias was probably one of the best games he's ever played as a Sixer. Defensively, Tobias kind of locked up Mikal Bridges in the last 2 games in a way that I had never anticipated him reaching that level of defense. The first round production that you got from the role players who, when they were loading up on Harden drives and Embiid post-ups and whenever he got the ball in general, the role players really came through. Like, Melton was fantastic in the second half. Paul Reed had like a ton of offensive rebounds. So you have to, I feel a little bit better about the Sixers supporting cast heading into the second round, but the Embiid injury kind of is always this cloud that hangs over this team in the second round, and it's back again. And we've talked about the ability, like, I talked about how I was worried about Harden after game 2, and he actually played pretty well in game 3, but still continues to struggle to finish. His floater game isn't nearly there. He hit a few mid-range shots, but not nearly enough for it to matter in the Nets series. And now we're going into a series against the Celtics, who we've talked about. The depth is better on your team. The versatility is better on your team. And now you have this Embiid thing hanging over where, like, we talked about the importance of Embiid kind of having to carry in a Celtic series. Mm-hmm. And now he has this injury. And it does feel as though it's going to take a lot from Embiid and the rest of the non-Harden Sixers to kind of even compete in this series. Unless Atlanta comes back and wins after being 3-1 with no DeJounte Murray.
So I have a chat of both Celtics and Sixers fans, and we were what I think is on the Sixers side is what's absolutely funniest, because objectively the funniest outcome is the Sixers beating the Celtics and then losing to the Knicks, and that's objectively the funniest thing that can happen.
The funniest thing, especially because as I've said many times, if the Sixers make the Eastern Conference Finals, I will be doing a parade on Broad Street with anyone who wants to join me. So me and Chiodo will be leading the parade, and then a week later to lose to the RJ Barrett Knicks.
I mean, that's a perfect, like, because Celtics fans get what they fucking deserve, Joker voice, like, sure. Gun in the face. Sixers fans do get the sort of, a little
conference
finals, and then Knicks fans get to go to the finals and immediately get just annihilated by the Warriors one more time.
Oh God!
That is like, all of that is the funniest possible thing that could happen. So yeah, we all agreed that's probably what's going to happen. Congratulations to your Sixers on the finals worth.
So also, I just want to say, Will's been pushing this, and I kind of partially believe it.
Yeah.
Of the teams that are left, assuming that Giannis is coming back tonight, so the Bucks still have a chance to come back and win the series.
The Bucks, I don't really think the Heat are actually going to win this.
I mean, I agree.
Yeah.
But now all it takes is one. Okay, so
you are one fuck up away from being on the precipice now.
You're one fuck up away from being on the precipice, and you're also like the Heat are shooting 50% from 3 in the playoffs. Like they keep getting away with it, dude. Like, it's 50% from 3.
Oh my God! What did they shoot in the regular season?
Look it up. Before they got Kevin Love, and I don't think Kevin Love shot well for them. They were the worst 3-point shooting team in the NBA before they got Kevin Love. Okay, which is why they traded for him.
Let's check out here. I'm working on this while you're keep going on your point while I pull the stats up here.
Okay. So did they shoot the worst percentage, or were they
27th 34.4. The team's worse than them. The Toronto Raptors, famously like the worst shooting team. The Hornets, who didn't care, and the Rockets, who are just dog shit. They, not even like one. I'm trying to think of other bad playoff teams. Like the Lakers were 24, for example, and they were like way better in the second half of the year. We talk about the Hawks and their lack of 3-point shooting. The Grizzlies, like they were a mess. Like it's so funny that they're just shooting like 50%.
Well, okay, so not only are they shooting 50%, but yeah. I've talked about the swings in that series. In terms of shooting, I've never seen anything like we always talk about your theory, which is basically which team makes more threes, which your Celtics actually kind of broke your brain in that. Yeah, I was going to say the Celtics shot the fucking shit out of the ball in game 3 and they lost, which was really weird. But the thing about the Heat Bucks series that's hurting my brain is that in the first game when Giannis went down, that the Heat broke their percentage record in the first game. They shot like over 60% from 3 in the first game. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. Second game, Bucks come back and they tie the NBA record for the most threes made in a game in game 2, 25. In game 3, Miami comes out and kicks the shit out of the Bucks in the first half, and they make 12 threes, which is almost halfway to the NBA record. So the shooting swings in this series for these teams have been absolutely insane. And if you look, it's actually even funnier if you look at the teams that are shooting the best in the playoffs so far. Miami's won at 50%. And then the next like 3 or 4 teams are like the Sixers, Celtics, Bucks, Warriors, all the teams that were the best shooting teams the entire season. Like the teams that actually have real 3-point shooters that are like consistently some of the best. So like the Heat getting away with this is like just like it's probably just some outlier hot shooting shit for a few games, but it's still annoying.
Duncan Robinson Undertaker gif, like
unbelievable.
Like, yeah, he was 5 for 6 in game 3 from 3, I think, which is so funny. Like,
someone brought up another stat about that. Duncan Robinson has almost, dude, I have to find it. It's just it blows my mind how they. Okay, this was from Stat Center, a guy I follow on Twitter. Okay, since 2020. Duncan Robinson, 915 playoff minutes, 100 3-pointers made at 41%, the true shooting of 65 overall. Steph Curry, 879 playoff minutes, 106 made 3-pointers. So 6 more 3-pointers at 40%, 61% true shooting overall. So Duncan Robinson has made almost as many 3-pointers as Steph Curry at a higher percentage since the 2020 playoffs. Like, what is happening, dude?
Oh God. I don't think the Bucks will lose, just because I can't believe that this is testing the limits of like Pat Riley's demonic pact he made with Mammon or whichever lesser daemon like he contracted with, because we're talking about 2 teams. You and I talked about how the Bucks are, we generally thought the Bucks were like one of the best teams, but not like clear the way that Bill and like Russillo and some of the other national media people seem to think. And that bears out, but we are talking about teams that are just radically different in terms of how good they are. Like if the Heat win this year, I know Giannis is hurt, and I get that Giannis is like an MVP candidate, like probably a pretty good chance to win MVP this year, depending on like what's going on. You should still be able to beat this Miami Heat team in the series. There's no like comfortably like without Giannis, this should be a 6-game Miami win and or Milwaukee win, and maybe it still will be.
You're selling locked in Jimmy short here, though. I
know he's locked in, but
he's been like the second or third best player in the like. Devin Booker's very clearly been the best player in the playoffs so far. Like he basically hasn't missed a shot on incredibly high volume and is playing the best defense of his career.
Yeah,
but like Jimmy Butler, other than like it's like Jimmy Butler and Anthony Edwards, like, and Steph Curry, like it's like that he's playing at that level again. And what's so frustrating to me, and look, their defense is going to change when Giannis comes back in this series. But what's so frustrating to me is that this is a matchup that historically he's actually kind of struggled with. Mm-hmm. But because he is such a fucking psycho in the playoffs, like he has figured out a way, even with Drew Holiday guarding him, even with Brook Lopez on the back line where he gets a lot of his buckets, he is still just fucking willing himself to these fucking 30.8 rebound, like 4 missed shots. Like it drives me insane. Like it just drives me insane watching it.
So I want to kind of talk about the Bucks real quick too, because I think this is I think this pairs nicely with the idea of like good luck and bad luck with like championship caliber teams and like injuries and stuff like that. Because I do think that if you're good for a certain stretch of time, I have a theory that you basically win about the right amount of titles, that it provided your window is not some like one-off like hyper peak thing. If your team kind of comes together organically and has, you know, the 5-year to 10-year, whatever 5 to 10-year window, you usually win about the amount of titles that you should. And I think the Bucks are a good example of that, because everyone kind of accuses the Bucks of being Mickey Mouse because like they, you know, had so many injuries, like so much injury luck on their way to the title. But now, you know, we'll see what happens with this thing. But they've had now 2 seasons of bad injury luck in the playoffs that derailed teams that had real championship aspirations and were, you know, like
maybe it's not. Maybe. I mean, if Giannis comes back and he's fine, they're still probably going to get to the conference final.
That's what I'm getting ahead of myself, but I'm just saying, to go back to like Warriors fans crying about like the injuries and like what, you know, with your luck, 4 titles seems about right for this particular like Warriors thing, you know,
considering the context.
Considering the context and everything like that. So I just think injuries, you can't get, provided you win at least 1, you can't get too like locked in on injuries and stuff like that. I feel like at a certain point, like the Clippers window is almost certainly shut now. I have no fucking idea what they're going to do. And I think that's just because it was just built on too rickety of a thing, you know, like you can't have your 2 best guys be as injury prone and miss as much time as those 2 guys. And I think that's just kind of what this is going to boil down to. So anyway, Bucks, but Bucks, you know, I'm not necessarily crying for them, but you know, they have had a tough go of it lately, and especially
they've had bad injury luck. I was going to say bad injury luck and shooting luck. But my whole point on this is like, and I talked about this last year in the Sixers series all throughout on the podcast every time. When Joel went down last year, I think that this year he's going to be able to play through the injury and not miss any games, which even if he's not 100%, they still need him out there on the court. Even if you watched last year when he came back in that Heat series, he was such a decoy. Like he wasn't himself. He had a fucked up thumb. His face, he had no peripheral vision because he had to wear a mask and shit. Like he wasn't Joel Embiid. But the fact that they had a superstar out there and the other team had to game plan around that superstar, which is even if Giannis isn't 100%, they're going to game plan for Giannis like he is 100%. And that's going to lead to opportunities for other players. And Drew and Giannis and all their role players need to feast and focus on that. But at the same time, their margin for error is so much thinner now, in the same way that the Sixers were when they went down 0-2 to the Heat last year, which is that they have one more hot shooting game or one insane Jimmy game where he scores like 45 and just drags the rest of the fucking Heat over the finish line like he's done so many times this season, especially in the second half of this season. And we're talking about, oh shit, the Bucks have to win. They're down 2-1 right now. They have to win. If they lose one more game, you're talking about if they lose tonight, that's 3 straight games they need to win. And that is hard no matter who's on the other side.
Yeah. It's kind of a must-win game 4 on the road. And I know that like FTX Arena or whatever the fuck it's called. It's so funny. It was FTX Arena. Formerly American Airlines, whatever. I don't know.
And now it's the Bang Bros Arena.
It's Bang Bro. Yeah, the Bang Bus Arena.
Milf Hunter Arena.
Yeah. Vixen Arena. Tushy.com Arena. We'll be jumping tonight.
Lemon Party Arena. Okay, all right, we'll move on.
But I it's not the most imposing place to play. But yeah, I mean, the Bucks kind of need to win tonight, like in a huge way. Like,
sure.
If they lose tonight, like it's odd
to say the least.
We are dangerously close to the words New York Knicks conference finals berth.
Oh, look, it would be look, not that the Bucks play the prettiest brand of basketball, but when they're healthy, at least they have like multiple guys who can create their own shot. They have skilled role players who are kind of connecting pieces. The Heat, this version of the Heat, they don't like they play them versus the Knicks, who just held the Cavs to 79 points in a playoff game, which was by far the lowest of any team this season has scored 79 points. Imagine them against this Heat team, dude. That's going to be the growth. If Kings Warriors advance basketball, that's going to set back basketball.
Yeah, no, that's rat mode versus dog mode. Like,
yes.
This is like the ultimate. God, it would be so funny to have. God, Will is gonna like cream himself. It's gonna be Celtics Knicks in the conference finals, and if you
tell
have
me who
to
you
give
fear
the
more.
Hawks,
Do you fear the Heat or the Knicks more?
Knicks.
The Knicks are I think the Knicks are way worse matchup for the Celtics.
Yeah, they're a way worse matchup. They're better. Like, the Heat have rat mode and they can kind of like, they can put the scare on the Celtics. Sure. We never should lose to that team. I still don't know. Brad Stevens, I hope he enjoys his the soft firing he got, as he should have, for losing that series. That is the worst coaching performance I've ever seen in my entire life. I cannot believe we lost. I still can't believe we lost that bubble series. Kemba Walker, oh God, I'm still mad about that. No business those two teams being remotely close to each other.
I'm conflicted because on one hand, I don't have a ton of faith in the Sixers in this next round to beat the Celtics. So if that's the case, should I be rooting for the Bucks? Because like the Bucks are the only team I think that can take you guys down, or at least make it a competitive series in the Eastern Conference Finals. I think the Knicks would probably win a game or two, to be honest.
Look, I'm not writing off the Knicks for whatever reason. They have no fear. They don't, they're scrappy. I mean, the Celtics would probably win. I don't write off anyone, man. Like the Celtics kind of let the Hawks figure it out. Like the Hawks played really well in Game 4. Did you watch Game 4?
I watched Game 4, and you know what's funny is Will keeps saying, and people keep saying, and the Celtics, they're going to be fine. They're going to run away. Like diaper mode isn't real. Like all this stuff, and then I'm like, I kind of felt like watching that game that the Celtics were basically handing them the opportunity to come back. Yeah. But the issue was that defensively they just could not hang. And honestly, I kind of think you guys lose that game if Robert Williams isn't just like the MVP down the stretch of that game, blocking shots at the rim. Dude, the play of the game was when you guys were up 10 and then they cut the lead to 8 and there was like a minute and 32 minutes left and Jalen turned the ball over and Rob tipped it back to him. I was like, dive. Yeah. That is like one of the most winning play moments that I've seen from a role player in the playoffs, that I was like, man, once again, this team might be starting to get, as I've said before, they might be diaper mode proof because of the fact that the role players fit in so well when they're healthy next to them. I do agree with your general theory here that the Celtics aren't completely bulletproof in a way that makes them unbeatable. That you shouldn't count out the Sixers or the Knicks or the Bucks in a series, even if the Celtics are the favorite, because they do have vulnerabilities.
Yeah, I just don't think the Celtics are going to be very reactive. You know what I'm saying? The Celtics are going to play their brand of basketball and will look shitty or good depending on it. I don't think they're going to make too much in the way of adjustments, to be like totally honest. Look, we talked about the looming Celtics Sixers matchup before. Everyone's tweeting at both of us about it. I am not very comfortable. If you put a gun to my head, I will probably end up picking Celtics in 6 as my series prediction. But I could see this series going 7 pretty easily, and I do not think it's completely out of the question the Sixers win this series. Like, there, a lot is different from the last times. A lot of Celtics fans are swaggering around like, we own the Sixers. Yeah. This team is like basically completely different except for Embiid, who's injured all the time.
Yeah, the role players. I wish that Harden played better in the first round, because I would feel real confident. And look, some of this might just come down to Joel having to be the best player, as you said before, the best player in 4 games, right?
Yeah.
The one thing that I will say is
He's
that
got to outplay Jaylen Brown in 4 games. Can he do that?
Can Joel Embiid take the throne from Robert Williams and be the best player in the Celtics Sixers series?
Derek White.
No lie.
Derek White.
That's what
White is our second best player behind Jaylen Brown. Tatum was outrageous on defense, like dropping kayfabe. But yes. He's an elite defender. I just wish he would not play like Kobe fucking Bryant.
Here's the thing, and Tobias said this in a press conference the other day, that I think that he said it. The playoffs are for hoopers. The playoffs the playoffs are for guys that can throw an interception, and then go back out there like it never happened, like a quarterback. And if there's one thing that mentality-wise that this Sixers team is different, is that they have PJ Tucker. They have, even with James Harden kind of playing like shit, and honestly, Joel kind of not looking like himself, at least the levels that we've seen from him in game 2 and 3, right? The strategy was get the ball to Joel, get the ball out of his hands as quick as possible because you're generating open looks. But Joel looked a little flustered when he tried to force it, and I think that Boston is well equipped to match up with that. Having said that, when the Sixers go down 15, I feel like they're going to win still. And from the Celtics perspective, what is beneficial?
That's a combustible matchup. The Celtics being up big and the Sixers being down big.
Sure, that's what I'm saying. And also, in addition to that, the Celtics having guys that are able to just put everything behind them, in terms of Jason Tatum isn't going to stop shooting just because the shot isn't falling. Al Horford's not going to stop shooting threes because the shots aren't falling.
Marcus Smart definitely won't stop.
Definitely won't. And I think that tactically, if we're looking at a Sixers-Celtics series, the Sixers are just going to live with Marcus Smart open threes because they know they're going to give up open threes at a certain point to a player in this series. I think the 2 players that they're just going to say, we can't, the Sixers always overhelp and overcommit. It's just kind of built into their defensive style. But the 2 guys that I think that they're going to be willing with giving them open threes and hoping that they don't make it are Derek White and Marcus Smart. Derek White obviously was able to make the Hawks pay with that. Marcus Smart, it's going to be up and down. But when you guys go to 5 out, if you have Smart out there, they're going to say, whatever, we got to leave someone open because Embiid needs to be near the paint in order for our defense to kind of have any sort of like structure and any sort of like anything. And if that's the case, they're going to live with Marcus Smart wide open threes and hope that whoever's near him can rotate over into the corner.
They did that. By the way, teams did that with Derek White last year in the playoffs, and that was a great fucking bet. That's why those series went 7. Like, Derek White's a different player.
So, Derek, if you're listening and you want to come on a podcast like this one,
no.
We'll talk about all different kind of mental things.
Explaining it is gonna.
Derek, have you ever heard of
generalized anxiety disorder on the podcast?
Derek, Have you ever heard of performance-based anxiety?
Yeah. No, what is that, JJ? Tell me a little bit more about that. JJ Redick, get a job, stay away from her. Like I will never forgive you.
Yeah, no, an opportunity actually just opened up at Fox News if you're interested.
Let's go.
So I think I stole that. I can't remember who sent me that, but that was very funny. Might have been in a group DM earlier, but I apologize for stealing that joke from whoever it was, if you're listening. Also, in the Sixers, actually, let's just talk one more thing tactically about the Sixers-Celtics series. Because I am
putting so much bad vibes on the Celtics right now by talking about this series before the Celtics have eliminated the Hawks.
I was going to say, well, yeah. Oh, come on.
I'm just saying, generally, it's a bad look. Like, if this goes to 7, I will be like...
DeJounte Murray's been, like, the best player for the Hawks.
I know, but I'm telling the basketball gods don't look favorably upon this stuff. I'm just saying.
I know you are a big basketball karma guy. I mean, we are one Trae Young 50-point performance from going back to Atlanta for Game 6, but yeah,
he's due.
but in all seriousness,
Jalen Johnson with 30. No,
we'll hold off from the full preview until you guys finish the series, and then we're next episode we're going to do a little bit of a deeper dive. Jason Buford's going to be on the next episode. I've already talked to him, and he's going to come on to talk about the Knicks, and then we'll talk about Sixers Celtics. But the one thing I want to say, and I wish that we had and look, Doc's been fine. I love Doc's pressers. I think he's super funny. I think that tactically, there are certain things that he might be able to, if he were a more creative coach, he might try some more things in this series that are a little bit out of left field that like a more creative coach would try. Doc's probably just going to stick with whatever he's been doing and not make adjustments until it's Game 3 and the series might be over or whatever. But the one thing I wish we could get away with, because I've been talking about this, is that if you put PJ Tucker in the dunker spot, the Celtics ignore him because no one cares. Like, they don't care. PJ might get some offensive rebounds occasionally, but they're not going to fear him as a scorer. Yeah. If you put Tobias there, they're going to fear him a little bit as a scorer under the basket, but they are going to say, we'll just rebound over Tobias. Like, he's not a great fundamental rebounder, right? Mm-hmm. There are two guys that I think really need real minutes in this series, and I don't foresee Doc doing it until it's maybe too late. And that's Jalen McDaniels, who he's been playing like 17 minutes a game. He probably should be playing 25 minutes a game in a Celtics series because he can defend one of the guys on the other end. And then he can do both of those things. He can score under the basket, but he also can rebound. And then the last thing that I would try, this is probably my Hail Mary attempt if the Sixers go down early. I think I would just try playing Paul Reed with Joel Embiid. Paul Reed, statistically, it's a very small sample of games. And by the way, most of the games they're playing against smaller teams, right? They're playing against the Nets this year, the Raptors last year, the Heat last year. Paul Reed statistically is like, other than Dennis Rodman, the greatest offensive rebounder in playoff history. Like, he is probably going to get himself paid $10 to $12 million this offseason per year, just based on the fact that he is maybe the best contested rebounder in the NBA right now. He's certainly up there with guys like Rob Williams and Steven Adams and Mitchell Robinson and guys of that nature. But I just wish that, like, as a kind of throw the Celtics off, if you guys are willing to play Al Horford and Robert Williams together, I think that the Sixers should at least try to play Paul Reed and Joel Embiid to try to steal some extra possessions when the game gets really grinded down. And you can put him on a big like Horford on the perimeter or on Robert Williams in the post, and he can survive in those minutes.
The Celtics are, and I mean, maybe this is the matchup with Atlanta, but I don't think so, because Atlanta is actually kind of a big rim protecting team that doesn't really. The Celtics actually haven't really gone to the double big that often. Or at least anecdotally, from what I can tell. Where I do think that matchup has a real chance is the Brogdon minutes. The Celtics get a lot more like rim focused. Like that Malcolm Brogdon loves fucking attacking the rim, and like he kind of gets tunnel vision. It's like drives me insane when he plays when Missoula plays Brogdon with Rob, because it's just like a terrible matchup, because like you need Smart or Derek White or guys who like understand that Rob is like the space Rob is occupying, and Malcolm Brogdon just bowls in, and it just is gross spacing like all the time. So I think there's a place for something like that in like Brogdon minutes. That's like makes it a little bit more vulnerable, but 100%. I think I would go a step further. I think McDaniels needs to play like 30 minutes. I think he like basically needs to be a starter for you guys. So
I think that in the event that PJ Tucker is fucking up the spacing so much, because this is something that we've talked about with like, I think that people view PJ Tucker, and I actually thought he was fantastic for what he needed to do in a few of those games in the Nets series, defensively, rebounding wise. I think that he's exactly what was advertised, besides he was kind of smoking a lot of open shots. But the difference, like we talk about this with like guys like Thibault and Okoro and Tucker, even if they're hitting their shots, they're not rotating over to that guy or really caring about them, because the focus of the defense is taking away the drive from the stars. And Donovan Mitchell was just missing open shots yesterday in that game. But in the first half, Donovan Mitchell couldn't get going because he couldn't get downhill, because anytime he did, there were 3 Knicks in the paint. It was basically like if Okoro's out there, they're going to live with whatever results come from that shot. And they're still going to do the same thing with PJ Tucker, even if he makes some shots like he did at the end of that Celtics game, which is why I do wonder if he really struggles. They move Tobias to that corner, who is a capable 3-point shooter you have to close out on, and you put McDaniels down low so that he can be that guy. And I don't disagree. I actually think it's possible Niang and Tucker play less minutes in that series by the end, and they go more athletic with McDaniels and Melton, and maybe some smaller lineups involving Melton as well.
The PJ Tucker, Grant Williams, Spider-Man meme will finally come to, there's just identical, like just fire hydrants that shoot threes. That
actually, someone, Chuck from Chucky Dart said, I didn't even think of this. He was like, if the Celtics have a number that they're going to walk away from and the Sixers lose Harden and they can get to cap space, would you offer a sheet to Grant Williams if you know that he's willing to sign with you? And then I was like, I mean, with how much they love guys like Niang and Grant and PJ Tucker, and the fact that in order to win the East, you're going to have to get through either the Bucks or the Celtics, probably the Bucks who have Giannis.
Grant gets clowned a lot because he is goofy. He's a really fucking good player. Like, I don't think Celtics fans realize how good like Grant is. Like,
yeah, I know he struggled this year, but I'm sorry. I think he's fine.
He's really good. He's still really good. He's got more offensive playmaking than like either of those guys. I think that's more the problem with Grant, is he thinks he's a little too good sometimes, and maybe that's a bigger problem in itself. But that's kind of a nightmare scenario if you guys turn the PJ Tucker spot into Grant Williams for that would be very interesting.
Well, I mean, he's still 24. Like, I mean, I think
he's really young. Yeah,
I was gonna say he has room to get better. And if the Sixers are just kind of retooling, it's never a bad idea to get guys with size that can shoot corner threes and can.
I mean, if you guys are going to play, I was just going to say you're going to play the Bucks
exactly.
Like 24. Yeah.
So. I mean, like, I didn't hate the idea if Harden does end up leaving and they're able to get a road to cap space, but those were just some general thoughts I had about a Sixers-Celtics series. I'll think a little bit more about it over the next few days before we talk about it, probably on the next podcast. But I don't know. I do just want to say a few things about that last closing game in the Sixers series. Doc will do this at some point in the Celtics series too. If the Sixers can't do anything on offense, we will see the break shake in case of emergency that Doc loves to do every playoffs. He played poorly in the game the other day, fouled 3 times very quickly, but we are still due for what you guys have your games. Like, you had your Derek White game so far. Mm-hmm. I'm sure at some point during the Sixers series, you'll have like your Malcolm Brogdon game or whatever. We had our Tobias game in the last game of the series. Shake is the last guy that is in the Sixers rotation. Melton had a game. He's the last guy that hasn't really had a game yet, that I feel like Tucker had a game early in the series. So keep an eye on the Shake Milton game in the Sixers Celtics series in the next round. So Or maybe the Sixers-Hawks series rematch.
Yeah. Tyrese Maxey, Derek White. There is going to be a game that's going to be decided by the Derek White, Tyrese Maxey lineup.
I'm sure. Yeah. I was going to say, God, White is so good. It makes me sick that the Spurs just traded him for Josh Richardson. And I know you guys sent the swap pick, but like it was really a late first round pick in reality.
I mean, bear in mind what was going on during the trade. The Celtics were below 500 when that, or like had been below 500 like 3 weeks beforehand or something.
No, I understand.
Yeah, that was a really.
I'm sorry, I don't care. If it was the 15th pick in the draft, I don't care. Derek White's better than whatever you're going to get for the 15th pick in the draft.
But here's the thing, though, is like exactly what we're talking about. With I did not think Jaylen Brown was going to be an All NBA player, and this was looming. You know that Derek, like, if the Celtics don't make the finals last year, what is the noise about Jaylen Brown's free agency right now? Like,
True.
That was
you have a backup plan with White, and then you can trade Jaylen and have more flexibility. Is the other thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, but that's.
I'm not. I know they're not the same player, but like it's nice to have the insurance of having a Derek White guy to fall back on.
I'll also say you didn't watch every Celtics playoff game and watching Derek White shoot like 32% for the entire playoffs.
But we know Derek White is good. Is my point.
He was very rough last playoffs, and I think we would have won the title if he was a little less rough. Like
you traded Josh Richardson for him.
I mean, that's true. We also traded a first round pick and Romeo Langford,
a late first round pick now.
Future NBA starter.
I forgot about Romeo Langford, who had so much trade value at the time when you traded him. I'm telling you, go back and watch Slopfest of that year. I was sick that you guys got him for so little. And it was...
Everyone thought it was a good trade. I was a little more skeptical because everyone was like, what? He's a great shooter. And then in the playoffs, he shot like 33%.
Sure.
Now he's good. So perfect. Awesome. I'm owned. But it was not always... It was really risky, and it did work out because the Celtics showed that they can get far enough. But if the Celtics lose to the Bucks in round 2, I don't know. And Jaylen Brown's not All NBA. There was downside there. I'm just
also one little nugget that is more proof to me that Mike Zarin is running the Celtics. Very obviously.
Yes.
Daryl Morey always talks about this, and Morey and Zarin have been friends forever. They work together in Boston. Yeah. He goes to the Sloan Conference. Like they have a good relationship. Yeah. Morey's always talked about how he's willing to overpay for guys that are locked up on what they perceive as good contracts.
Yeah.
And Derek White has probably one of the best contracts in the NBA, and you traded for him in the first year of the extension. Yeah. And Malcolm Brogdon, now that he's healthy, has a good contract.
Yes.
And Marcus Smart and Robert Williams were both extended on good contracts. So my point here, Al Horford, good contract. This is very clearly the workings of Zarin identifying these kind of market inefficiencies, which is getting guys on good contracts that are like key role players. Yeah. And especially, we talked about before, we might have talked about this when you have good wings, they nailed the combo guard market inefficiency, which is like Horford is a kind of a cheat code when you have two good wings to have him as your center.
Yeah.
But the Derek White, Malcolm Brogdon, Marcus Smart, not really a point guard, not really a shooting guard, but all can do different things that either of those positions can do. Smart as a playmaker, White as now a shooter, Brogdon as a ball handler, driver, and shooter with touch that can pass a little bit. Like you guys have such a variety of kind of players that you can rely on for different matchups.
Derek is the point of attack guard defender. Yes. Marcus is the like baby Draymond, like, you know,
linebacker,
quarterback. Like of the defense. And then Brogdon is just the halfback dive option.
Exactly.
His Bucks time where he learned the halfback dive as a play.
Sure. He'll be guarding George Niang in the next series, I'm sure, and then cooking him on the other end with his old man game. But the other thing, the last thing I'll say about that is, it's just the fact that like it, and I've said this before, it just reminds me, you guys remind me of a Spurs team, which is just like, which is funny that they got Derek White as kind of one of the final pieces. And Malcolm Brogdon kind of has a Spurs-ish game, but like the closest comp I could think of is those late Spurs teams at the end of Duncan's career, And maybe that's selling Tatum's offensive game a little bit short just because Kawhi wasn't quite there offensively yet. But it is kind of in a similar mold that we talked about.
I wish he was Kawhi. I wish he was.
You're so ridiculous. You wish that he had one knee?
No, I wish he was healthy, Kawhi. I wish he didn't.
Having one of the 3 best players of the last 10 years would be fantastic.
Did you see what he Snapchatted like earlier this afternoon? It's just he's literally watching Kobe videos with it. I'm not kidding. I am not kidding. People are going to think I'm joking. In the Snapchat, I retweeted it. He has an open tub of lotion between his legs and is watching Kobe film. So I'm just going to say.
Excuse me?
I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. So,
oh, my God.
Yeah, so anyway. That's enough of me complaining about the Celtics. I'm doing the Warriors.
I was going to say, as Jason Tatum holds up the Finals MVP and Sam is shaking his fist to the heavens about his true shooting percentage in the Finals.
I was going to say he's going to own me. He and Derek White. If Derek White shoots 50% and Jason Tatum wins the title, I'll be so owned. Please don't do that, guys. I'll be so mad.
All right, your mic is going to get muted in a second. Okay, so. All right, so let's go with two quick things here. I don't really want to talk about the Nuggets-Wolves series. That series is over, as we have talked about. But
yeah, gentleman's sweep going on there.
So a few things. I want to say a lot of our takes on Anthony Edwards after last season are going to age fucking horribly. and by the way, our takes at the time were we like Anthony Edwards a lot.
Mm-hmm.
He's a fun young player, probably one of the most fun players to play. Off the court is just like a fun personality. On the court is a amazing athlete and scorer type. I kind of think that some of our takes about him being overrated as of maybe less than a calendar year ago. And even I said it at the time when we did our prospect draft. And I said, of all the picks here, this one has the potential to age the poorest. I think we took him with like the 12th pick or something. Like,
yeah, and I agree with that.
Yeah. And we were buying too much into like the boomer shit with like his work ethic, and like he showed up out of. We said we weren't trying to get too caught up in that at the time. I went back and I listened. We were like, we don't want to be too alarmed by this, but there might be some signs here that he's not going to reach his 100% full potential in a way that other players might. Having said all that, he's still amazing and blah, blah, blah. This is probably going to age poorly. Where we
I think it was more just everyone. He was like being chosen as like the young player.
Sure.
And like, I think later we go on to say that like, what's so different between him and Shea, you know, like right. And I feel like that's pretty, good. I just would have liked to have seen it one more time. And here he is showing it. And by the way, I do want to like that. He's like a real leader. Like he has real leader charisma. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that's a huge difference between like, I think that what's the thing with Anthony Edwards is he is utterly not worried about media creation, but instead of like being frustrated and like angry by it, like the way that a lot of NBA stars are, like the media, which by the way, the media is awful and like
I understand.
Correct. Like they should be angry. He's just like not bothered by it. He's just like kind of like laughs at everyone and is like, I don't know. I'm just gonna keep having an awesome life and like being cool. Like I don't like it. And I think that's perfectly fine. And he's like he might have the most confidence in the NBA. Like who's like got more confidence than him? Like Steph Curry and Jimmy maybe. And then like, I can't think of anyone else.
He's certainly top. I was going to say he's certainly top 5 in that category. And I mean, look, I feel like people keep forgetting because he's so good for his age, how young he still is.
Yeah.
Like he's 21. Like we talked about it. And like, honestly, like, over the last 5 years, I'm going to pose this question to you. Over the last 5 years, if you had to rank the 5 best players at age 21, I think you could make the argument that Edwards is like 2 or 3, depending on like, it's like Luka's 1 by far. Luka at 21 was like one of the 10 best players in the NBA.
And it's
but
maybe Tatum, but
it's like maybe Tatum, and
Yeah.
like Tatum was still a little bit inconsistent at his age. Not that
Yeah.
Ant isn't. Ant is still inconsistent too, and Tatum might have shown more in the playoffs because he had a lot more. I mean, Edwards has been amazing in the playoffs, but yeah, it's a good point. Edwards right behind Cam Thomas. I forgot about Cam Thomas.
Yeah, where's Ant's 50 piece?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't think he scored 50, but still.
Yeah. Okay, well, never mind. In my head canon, Cam Thomas has scored 70 points. He did the Booker. He had a Booker game.
So basically at 21 years old, taking all things into account, obviously Tatum had more opportunities to shined in the playoffs very early in his career. But Anthony Edwards, here's a list of players who were 21 years or younger that have averaged 32, 4, and 4 in a playoff series. Anthony Edwards, Luka Doncic, and Tracy McGrady, the only 3 in NBA history. Players that have scored 30 points or more 5 times by the time they turn 21 years old in the playoffs. LeBron and Anthony Edwards. That's it. He is...
Wow.
Obviously, this Nuggets matchup is kind of an opportunity for him to feast, even though they've been losing these games. They competed in the last 2 at least. They won. They collapsed down the stretch and then won in overtime after collapsing down the stretch again. But Ant is... like, what's so impressive to me is, like, dude, he has a block percentage of 4.4 and a steal percentage of 3%.
Yeah.
Defensively, he's way better than he's ever been at 21. His assist percentage is up to 24.5, while he's only turning the ball over 6.4% of the time. Like, he has a 32% usage, a BPM greater than Jokic, who's like the number 1 BPM guy through 4 games. He has a 12.3 BPM right now in the first 4 games of the playoffs. Like, this is historical shit we're seeing from him, even if we know that the Nuggets always give, like, as our friend Matt, Warriors/Knicks Matt Q brought up, they also got Jordan. He also got Jordan Poole $130 million contract last year. The Nuggets defense. Well, this team's better, but it's just like the Nuggets always struggle against like the Mitchells, the Dames, the Ants and caliber players.
Two sides to this, because my pal Ryan Bernardoni, probably less of a pal to those in Sixers Twitter, public enemy number 1, but he when Tatum was coming up, he had a lot of these lists where it was like, that's weird. If you look at like who did this young, it's like Jordan, LeBron, and like Anthony Davis. That's pretty interesting. Like it would just be like a ton of lists like that. When that happens, that means something. Like, because I thought, I was like, that's kind of ridiculous. And it turns out, no, Tatum is like a legitimate like MVP candidate. So I think Ant is that good. Now, I will say this, and why I kind of stand by our take that, like, he might not be ready yet. I mean, they're also still like not winning this series remotely.
Right.
I mean, there is a huge talent discrepancy. And he is saddled with 2 of the biggest playoff losers in the world on his team, which is like he like
Rudy Gobert and Taurean Prince.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. He's got like the Rock Lee and Naruto. He's got the 2 like weights around his leg. Like he's gonna pull those off at some point and drop them off and just all of a sudden be like lightning fast. Like, I mean, and like that's like the only thing I think stopping Timberwolves fans from committing seppuku. Like with like what has happened. Like you do have probably one of, and like if Bill did his trade value column, like Ant's got to be up there in terms of trade value right now.
That's what we brought up on that episode. I was like, maybe he was a little bit too high because I think he was like 7 or 8. But now I'm like, I mean, he's got to be. He's got it. Like if you were basing your because like someone said earlier, Andrew Schlecht of the Saturday Slam and Jam on The Athletic, he posed a question on Twitter. Whose future would you rather have, the Hawks or the Wolves? And I was like, I think it's the Wolves even though they gave up all those picks, even though they might have kind of shot themselves in the foot with this Rudy Gobert trade, I still think it's the Wolves just because you have a potential superstar in a rookie contract. And that is the most valuable team building thing you can probably have, even if you kind of shot your wad. If they can figure out a way to move on from Cat and not get completely hosed in that deal, and maybe get a few rotation players who are better fits with McDaniels and Edwards. And even, look, Gobert has his playoff faults, but like in the regular season, he's still going to be a positive player. And Conley is just like a normal, boring point guard. And I kind of think that like the next step for Ant is like, all right, you've proven you can be a 3-level scorer. You've proven you can be a lockdown on-ball defender. Now, can we get the playmaking up to a level where your scoring gravity, you're able to become like a pick and roll maestro, which is the only part of his game he hasn't really mastered yet. And that is what is stopping him from becoming like one of the 5 or 10 best players in the NBA in a few years. Yeah. So if that is the case, put a normal team around him. Like I would kind of move more so because I kind of just want to keep Naz Reid if I'm them. Talking about moving on from Karl Anthony Towns in the offseason and freeing up money to bring him back, and then developing him as your other big, along with who can play probably a little bit with Rudy Gobert. He can come off the bench. And then in addition to that, you have a few other young guys and good depth pieces. Kyle Henderson's a really good role player and will be a great fit with that team. Taurean Prince has been a good fit on that team. Like, I kind of think that despite the fact that they shot themselves in the foot, the Hawks are on the verge of potentially blowing this thing up this summer, and who knows what their future holds. And the Wolves are kind of in a position where, like, they at least for the next 5 to 6 years before Ant starts to look around, might have this competitive window with a guy that's, you know, not even close to his prime yet.
Well, and once they, you know, use their mid-level to sign Grant Williams, they're going to be, like, really in business. That'll be awesome for them.
Let's go.
Yeah, I was like, we love it.
Paul Reed to the Wolves.
Yeah, Paul Reed to the Wolves. Let's go. Double bigs for the thing. Yeah, I mean
4 bigs.
Yeah, 4. Oh, jeez, 4 bigs and Ant.
Oh, Sam for us.
It's as long as you've got a good young player, you're always in the mix. You know, so I think Wolves. It's pretty bad. Like this really could have been something special, like championship caliber if they don't do the Rudy Gobert trade and just trade Cat for like a team that fits the timeline a little better. But
I wanted them to do it.
Yeah, they could. But hey, they could still be like, they could still be a, you know, right? They can still crack that you know, conference finals with luck. And if you're in there, like, you need extreme luck, but you know, championship's not like totally off the table. Like, you know, let's see. And the problem is the Thunder dynasty in their division.
Yeah, exactly. And they still have the 2-time MVP and Jokic in their way and all that stuff. But it is funny that they have they just had this window, they had this opportunity, and they got so excited so early that they might have blown the whole thing with that Rudy Gobert trade. You're back.
This was me. This was my internet trying to protect me because you said the Wolves just got too excited and blew it early. And this was, my mind immediately went, oh, they got too excited and blew it early. And then I started winding up the joke that actually it's normal to blow it early when you get too excited. And then, you know.
Good. I'm glad your internet crashed.
Yeah, I have my internet crash trying to protect me from
horrible dad joke.
Yeah, just a terrible impotence joke. So
let's go. So yeah, the Timberwolves, not all is bad for them. They have, and it's something that I've talked about, and we've talked about, like, you know, you need to just kind of have the guys to hang around long enough, and maybe you can find your window. A few years ago, when everyone acted like the Celtics were doomed, a few years ago when everyone acted like the Sixers were doomed, a few years ago when they acted like whatever team was doomed, as long as you have one of these level guys, you're never doomed, is the reality. Is like, even the Mavs are in piss and shit right now. And in a year from now, I wouldn't be shocked if we were talking about them as contenders again, just because Luka Doncic is that fucking good.
How about the fucking Sixers?
I know. That's what I was saying.
So cursed, and they just happen to have Embiid, and it's fine.
And they win a playoff series almost every year because of it. So that is the thing, is like the fact that you just need to have one of these guys, and and all things considered, they probably found one of these guys in Anthony Edwards. And I have one more thing before we move on from this. Right now, last 3 drafts, you can take one player from the last 3 drafts. Who are you taking? Because 2021 draft, I'm starting to get a little bit worried about that draft. I'm not going to lie.
Okay, well,
It's early. It's way too early to really make any conclusions. But the way that Mobley has looked offensively in the playoffs.
Yeah, Mobley, Scotty, that's tough. I will not be taking Cade. Paolo in this one. I mean,
that's another interesting one.
I think it's gotta be Ant. I think it's not close, to be totally honest. I think next I'd probably go with Tyrese Halliburton after him, or Paolo. Yeah, which
is so funny because the 2020 and look, they've had the luxury of kind of figuring things out, and they're in year 3 now. So maybe it just looks a little bit better for them than it will for the 2021 guys or the 2022 guys in a year or two.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get too caught up with that, because I do think that really the only candidates are like Ant and Paolo right now. Just like, if I want like a lead scorer that can lead my offense, that I feel like the playmaking, or with Paolo, the defense will get there eventually. I definitely would lean towards those kind of guys, but it's possible that we're kind of just looking at it like this 3-year span, and the 2020 draft, going into that draft, was thought to be like a bad draft class, and like I kind of think that it's better than the 2 after. I know it's easy to say that now because a few guys took a little bit to break out. Like Bane was really good in his 2nd and 3rd year. Hallie was really good in his 3rd year. LaMelo shined early. Ant shined early. Maxey broke out in his 2nd and 3rd year. So like maybe I should give
Darius Garland broke out.
No, that was
later.
2019. 2019. I'm talking 2020, 2021, and 2022.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say here is that there are definitely guys in 2021 that can still break out, like Giddey could break out next year, or someone along those lines. But I will say, early results, like we're looking at the 2020 draft class right now, and I'm saying there might be 6 or 7 guys that make all-star teams in that draft. Like, think about it like this. Potential all-stars from that draft. Ant, Hallie, Ant and LaMelo have already made all-star games, which is pretty good for your first 3 years in the league.
So
Hallie
Hallie
made it this year. So there's 3. We already have 3 all-stars from that draft. We're talking about a guy who has potential to be a top 10 player in Anthony Edwards. Who knows what happens with LaMelo once they figure out that situation in Charlotte, if they ever figure out that situation in Charlotte. Bane has potential to be an all-star. Maxey has potential to be an all-star. Vassell has potential to be an all-star. And it's probably more of a long shot, but with the lack of good wings in the NBA, McDaniels at least has an outside shot to be an all-star, I think. And that's 8 guys that we're talking about that have potential to be all-stars, and we're only in year 3, and you get to year 4 and 5, and sometimes you get the Lauri Markkanen all-star, you get the Julius Randle all-star that like we didn't see coming at all.
There's guys like IQ who are like, kind of
high-level role players.
High-level role player type guys. Sadiq Bey is another like high-level-ish role player guy, like Patrick Williams. We always talk about him. Like, there's a lot of guys up and down that draft, and like to your point, you go to the next year. Who's I think the best player from the 2021 draft? I mean, is Franz going first in a redraft now? Like, I took him.
I said I would take him number 1 over Mobley because I had concerns about Mobley's offense. But defensively, Mobley is incredible still.
Yeah, I'm alarmed that the Knicks gave Mobley that. I mean, I know he's young, but like
he's 21. But so is Ant. I mean, look. To be fair to Mobley. The Mobley Allen thing is going to have trouble in the playoffs if they don't have enough shooting around them. And he's a very long way to go offensively, but it's not a guarantee he gets there. And I feel confident that there are other guys that I can at least look at and say from that 2020 class where I'm like, like you could make the argument that Hallie and or LaMelo have shots to be the number one pick in any of these drafts, and they were from the same draft that was thought to be a weak draft class, and it's proven to not be. Is my point, at least so far. So we'll see what time will tell, but like for now, it's been a fantastic draft class through a few years. Okay, last two things I want to touch on real quick. We'll save the one for last because I know you're going to love this subject and you might want to just go crazy on it.
Okay.
You can hear me sighing because we were really going to get another summer of Damian Lillard rumors. Did you see the report about the Nets earlier?
Yeah, my Nets fan friend sent it to me. I mean, I'll tell you what I told him. I don't think that makes sense for the Nets, to be totally honest. Like, I feel like you're making the same fucking mistake again that you made with like Kevin Garnett and fucking Paul Pierce. Like, you've got a lot of options right now. You are in a pretty good market. There's no rush right now. Like, all your guys are going to be under contract. Like, you can look, you got Jacques Vaughn, who's a perfectly competent placeholder coach, who's like very affable. Like, just hang out, man. Chill out. See what happens. Like, the guys always become available. You do not need to throw everything for, how old is Dame? 34?
33. I think he's going to be 34 in a year. Yeah. Next season.
That's like the oldest man in the world. That is ancient. Anyone who is 33 years old should be thrown off a cliff.
That's true. I will say in about 3 to 4 weeks, we should stop that rule though. Okay. My birthday is May 17th.
Okay. Yeah. If anyone on this pod is 33 right now, they definitely should be thrown off of a cliff.
They have no use in society.
Yeah. They need to be taken out with extreme prejudice. I would say, I don't know. I don't like the fit for them.
Oh,
I mean,
Dame's good. He's 32. He turns 33 in July, though. So the clock's ticking.
Yeah. So also, Chris Haynes literally just tweeted his latest propaganda piece for
Dame
about Dame and being courtside at the Nets game
and not wanting to leave.
Yeah.
Are you serious? Are you
no,
serious?
No, he literally just tweeted, want all the details of the NBA game Damian Lillard attended courtside as a fan? He shares them with Steinlein on this uncut This League podcast. So he's retweeting the thing. Anyway, I just, if I were the Nets, I think you're actually in a pretty strong position. Like, also, Ben Simmons' contract can only go up in value. I don't think he'll actually play better, but it'll get shorter. So, like,
please look at the graphic. No dots to connect with Lillard and Nets.
Okay. So
it's just like, shut up, dude. Like, and it's not. First off, this isn't even Dame's fault. Like, Dame just wanted to go to a game, and I'm sure he's trying to recruit Mikal, is what I'm guessing here. He's trying to get Mikal Bridges to come to Portland, which makes sense. You want to have a 3-and-D-ish guy, but like the Nets should not trade. First off, they shouldn't trade Mikal Bridges unless they're getting an upgrade on Mikal Bridges, which no Damian Lillard guy, like other than Damian Lillard on the Blazers, there's no one on that roster that could be an upgrade over Mikal Bridges. So you should not trade Mikal Bridges.
Unless you're like totally starting from scratch and you want to do,
but you don't own
Shaden Sharp and all the picks.
Yeah. You don't have your picks. So like, there's no point in doing that kind of trade.
But that's kind of erroneous though. You know what I'm saying? Like, you just want to make your team better.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't, the picks are a sunk cost. I don't believe in like trying to be good just because of you don't have your picks is just because it's like less embarrassing. Like, that's not good either. But anyway,
that's true. Yeah. No, it's a good point. Like, it's like you shouldn't act on the fact that Houston has your picks because you should do what's best for your franchise in the long term. In terms of like, if you think Shaden Sharp's going to be a superstar, then you should get Shaden Sharp for sure. I understand that. Like, if they were to offer Shaden Sharp and picks and for Mikal Bridges, you should at least entertain that. If your evaluation of Shaden Sharp is this guy is. It's not my evaluation, but it could be someone that really likes Shaden Sharp in your organization. Having said all this, I do think that I kind of agree with you. I think the Nets should just chill on the star thing. My main reason why the Knicks should chill on the star thing is like, if anything, I think they should go in the opposite direction. Like, I would be open to like trading Joe Harris for a younger player, or trading Dorian Finney-Smith for maybe like I think they should have traded him at the deadline because they had an offer for 2 first-round picks. If you could get a first-round pick and like a prospect, or a first-round pick and like maybe some seconds for Dorian Finney-Smith. The reason I say this is because I'm rebuilding the asset base now if I'm the Nets, and I'm waiting to see what happens with Luka Doncic first. Because if Luka is on the market in a year and you blow all of your trade assets on Damian Lillard, you're going to be like, oh, fuck. We could have had... Like, Luka's going to put the New York teams, the Heat, like, he's going to put... If he ever has a list, it's going to be like LA, Heat, New York. Yeah. Like, it's going to be the same fucking teams that Donovan Mitchell put on his list.
LeBron for Luka? Question mark.
There we go. LeBron for Luka.
Is Bronny getting drafted by the Mavericks?
Let's go. But
Nico Harrison's masterstroke drafting Bronny.
Let's go. Yeah. But yes, the point on this is that the Nets should be comfortable. I don't think they should rush to trade for a guy like Damian Lillard at his age. Unless you just want to compete, make the playoffs. But like, why is Dame leaving Portland? Because he could probably over the next 2 years do that there as well. So I agree with that. I also think you should consider trading Mikal Bridges for either someone that you view as a long-term upgrade over him, or if a team's willing to like go crazy. Like if the Pelicans offered you 6 first-round picks or some shit. Like I'm just throwing it out there. You know what I mean? Like
right.
A team
something like that. Yeah.
Like the one of these crazy rich teams with picks, like the Thunder or the Pelicans or something like that. Otherwise, I think you should run it back. Honestly, I think you should just try to look to move on from Joe Harris, Dorian Finney-Smith, who don't seem to fit with the team very well, and then maybe just try to upgrade on Spencer Dinwiddie. Like, they should be in the conversation for Trae Young. Like, I think if Trae Young's available this offseason, I don't think you should give up everything to get him, but they should certainly be in the conversation. And like, I don't even, by the way, outside of Mikal Bridges, I don't think they have enough to get a Damian Lillard even. Like who are they trading? Like Nick Claxton and a bunch of picks? Like the Blazers aren't trading Damian Lillard for Nick Claxton to be the best player. And I like Claxton, but like this is the best player of their franchise over the last 20 years. Like they're not trading.
I mean, I will say it seems like the Blazers are huffing the Dame fumes enough that they would kind of they would do like what the Nets did with Durant and kind of, you know, if he says he wants to go to the Nets, they'll figure it out. You know what I'm saying? Like, So I don't know. I just don't think it's a good trade for exactly what you said. We always say, oh, superstars, this is a once in a generation chance to get this superstar. And there's always like another guy within 2 years. Like there's always
it's different now.
Yeah. It's crazy. Like, are you sure Giannis isn't going to be available in the next 5 years? Are you sure? Gun to your head. Like,
well, gun to my head, I would say that there's no player in the NBA that is ever staying with a team for their entire, because the only one that's currently in the NBA that's done it is Steph Curry. And then Dame. But Dame's like a unique outlier. But like even LeBron has gone to multiple different teams. Even Kevin Durant, even Kawhi Leonard, even like every other superstar, Harden. They all leave at a certain point. So, like, you can say as much as you want about wanting to stay loyal to a franchise. Other than Dame, no one's ever done it without winning at least one title. And most guys don't ever win a title. So, that's kind of just the reality of the situation. Yeah. Oh, and but I also don't consider Bradley Beal a real star.
Yeah. No,
Sorry, you have to make the playoffs every year for me to consider you a star.
When Jason Tatum goes to the Lakers, it'll
let's go.
It's going
to be a movie.
They unretire 24 so he can wear it.
In 2026, the Jason Tatum, Joel Embiid Lakers.
Yes.
Let's go.
Let's go. Beautiful. Yeah, I was gonna say
as we stare into the global apocalypse.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
let's go Lakers.
Trill, you and I are 40. We're both blood bags on the front of the War Boys rides, and we do this podcast in between being taken out on water and bullet missions. This is what we're talking about, how mad we are at the Lakers for getting Embiid and Tatum together.
Everyone is just mandated to wear Lakers uniforms at all times. That's the new. New. It's you. If you live on the East Coast, you have to wear the Heat jerseys, and if you live on the West Coast, you have to wear the Lakers jerseys. That's the uniform.
Yeah, the Newsom Imperium. We'll gladly give that up, but as residents of the Great Lakes Confederation of JV Pritzker, we will after they annex the Northeast, we will have to defend our beautiful Milwaukee Bulls, as they're called now. They rolled all the teams into one.
It's just like the wartime team for the Pennsylvania Steagles, when the Steelers and the Eagles, they didn't have enough players, so they had to mash them together during World War II. It will be just like that. And last thing here, I might need to let you riff and let you cook here. Since we last recorded, Nick Nurse was fired by the Toronto Raptors. Just Sam's face looks like the high just hit him.
Sorry, I'm just licking my fingers. All this delicious fascism defeat.
Let's go.
Can't defeat fascism in our world, but we can defeat it in the basketball world. What is there to say about Nick Nurse? I'm sure he was a miserable guy who ruined Kemba Walker's career, playing him extended minutes in the All-Star game. His players hated him, and he's one of the fakest
and his
NBA championship. Yeah, he's one of the fakest, NBA good coaches we've had in a long time. But yeah, I look forward to his coaching tenure with the Charlotte Hornets. I think he'll turn that franchise around, and good luck to him. Do you have any idea how horrible of a nasty, uncharismatic guy you've got to be for Raptors fans to turn on you when you're one of their own? Like,
you won a title, came up in the ranks through the assistants.
Yeah, like Raptors fans. I once said that Christian Coloco was mid, and I got a picture of my nephew at his daycare from an anonymous outside maybe keep Christian Coloco's name out of your mouth. And I was like, what? Who are you? And they turned on Nick Nurse. That is incredible. You've got to be one of the worst people.
This is the fan base that a few weeks ago we were talking about them harassing a 9-year-old.
They wanted to call security to escort the child out of the building for being too loud at their playoff game.
Let's go.
Oh, that was awesome.
They have now turned on Nick Nurse. And it feels as though, fascism has been defeated. The evil demon Nick Nurse has been taken down.
Yeah.
Stars around the league can, be comfortable now, not have to worry about, being attacked during games. Yeah. Anytime they touch a basketball, it will be a new era, a beautiful day in the NBA until Nick Nurse goes to another team. And
the necromantic magic in Darius Garland's eye that kept it from healing is slowly phasing out. That's why I still like my Cavs in 5 pick, even though it's statistically impossible at this point.
It just magically clears up.
Yeah, Darius Garland's going for 50 the rest of the series.
Let's go.
The demon Nick Nurse has been destroyed. I mean, I genuinely am very. I wonder if the Lakers will go after him and just brutally fire Darvin Ham for I'm trying to think of who are even his teams.
Yeah. Oh God, I hope it's not the Sixers. I know. Look, I don't know how the season is going to end. I don't know if Doc is here or not next year. I think he would have to be fired against his will. And I'll believe it when I see it. That the ownership group might be willing to eat his contract and then pay another well-known coach real money. That doesn't sound like something they would do. They certainly didn't want to do it with Brett Brown, and they were kind of forced into it.
I know what it is. It's going to be the Pelicans. I just realized
they're not going to fire Willie Green. I don't think so. I don't think they will. I think
somebody's got to be a fall guy here. I mean, Zion is for now.
I think Zion is. Yeah,
I could see Willie Green getting the Nate McMillan treatment halfway through next year.
I have an idea for you.
What's that?
Cleveland Cavaliers.
JB
Bickerstaff did get an extension, but it's only for 1 year. And the Cavs had high expectations and might lose in the first round in 5 games.
And he's been kind of brutal to be. I mean, I know it's not all his fault.
No, the roster sucks, but
the roster sucks. Yeah,
dude. We'll talk about it more with Jason in a few days. But dude, you can't put. At one point they had Jared Allen. Okay, so when they remove Okoro from the court, which has its own issues with spacing, they had Jared Allen, Mobley, and they had Ricky Rubio spotting up in a corner with Darius Garland running the offense and Karis LeVert. And I was like, what are we doing? Like, you can't have that much lack of shooting in the playoffs ever, regardless of whatever your roster construction is. Like, you just got to cut the rotation to 7 at that point and just play the starters with LeVert in the lineup and then bring Okoro and Osman off the bench and just... You're about to be down 3-1. Like, how are you still playing a guy who's just very obviously not playable in this situation? And your other guys are struggling as well because of it. So, yeah, I don't know. JB, I really don't think he's done a great job in the playoffs, despite being kind of handed a shitty situation. I think a better coach might have been able to kind of figure out these things throughout the course of a series tactically and figured out what his rotations were and at least stuck with that. But, like, I don't know. I know he wasn't dealt the greatest roster, but I still have major question marks. And, like, I think he probably does get fired. And I think that Nurse, I mean, defensively, they were one of the best defenses in the NBA. He's a defensive coach. Like, he's probably going to have a lot. They almost traded for Donovan Mitchell and Jared Allen in Toronto. They wanted to draft Evan Mobley. And, like, if he had say on any of these things, he would definitely be interested in that job. And then he would be back in the Eastern Conference and I would pull my fucking hair out. Because that's the one team in Embiid they've never been able to figure out in Embiid, regardless of who's on the court. And they would get Nick Nurse and I would lose my mind. So.
Oh, let's pray that the demon stays banished.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Anything else to say?
Now, I was doing pretty well with my playoff predictions up until the Knicks had to go and ruin my fun. So I feel like I do need to eat crow here. I have to cop to the fact Will has owned me, specifically Will with the RJ Barrett. This is his ultimate consummate victory over me.
Well, no, RJ Barrett's been good the last 2 games, though. So Will's been owned a little bit.
No, I won't. I'm not desperate enough for a win that I will hitch my wagon to the RJ Barrett fake playoff game.
I'm not saying that he's good. I'm saying he has been good for 2 games. And Will said that they were honestly. I know this is going to sound insane. I think I'm being reactionary, and I've always never been an RJ guy.
Yeah. We were on that early. We were on that very early. Both of us, yes.
You could make the argument that RJ Barrett has been better than Julius Randle in this series, though.
Oh, easily. Julius Randle's been horrible.
And they're winning!
Awful. Yeah, he's been awful. What did Q say that he was mad after the game?
He got benched. He got benched down the stretch because, and honestly, the shots aren't going in, and we had question marks about what he would be like as kind of a hub of an offense after he struggled last time in the playoffs. But more to me, his defensive effort was just piss poor yesterday, and the Knicks have too many good guys to really have to put up with that shit down the stretch of a big game. And the fact that RJ the fact that they're getting positive production out of RJ does change what the trajectory of what the team can be if he can just string together a couple good weeks.
Your Eastern Conference finalist, New York Knicks. I can't wait to talk with Jason about this. I'm very excited. I didn't realize Jason was coming on the pod. I'm very excited. Everyone tune in next week. Jason's a
few days. He's going to be here end of the week. So
yeah, very, very good guest.
Jason's one of the best guests. And also in addition to that, the Knicks might make the conference finals. before the Sixers. And the Kings might make the conference finals before the Sixers, which is insane to me. But we'll see. We'll talk later in the week. Subscribe to Patreon if you want to hear me have a mental breakdown over the potential of this. So yeah, that's it. Let's end it at that. I want to watch these games in a little bit. So peace.
Excellent sound effect.